Hello again, welcome back. Lovely bright evening. And today, what we're going to do is have a look at the starter motor in the Talbot Express, the 2 litre petrol version, and quick explanation on a change of starter motor, and then a little bit about what the starter motor does and shouldn't do. So let's get on to the bottom. Okay, starter motor already swapped out. Now, this is one of the most annoying things on a vehicle is whenever you have an intermittent issue with the starter motor. 8 times out of 10 works perfectly well. 9 and 10, ninth and 10th attempt clicks. Now, as I said, the starter motor's already out. I've already split the solenoid away from the starter motor, but we'll come back to that in a moment, and I'll explain why we did that. But a little bit about just this swap out itself. Okay, now starter motor on the Talbot Express, and as I say, this is the 2 litre, the 1971 petrol version. Really very straightforward to get to. Now down in there you will see the nice shiny clean starter motor and solenoid combination. Obviously in these vehicles you do have the starter mounted solenoid, but simple to get to. The lower heater hose sits on a bracket which is actually attached to the top bolt on the starter motor clamp, as it were, and you just move that out of the way. All right, gently prise it away, and then below that what you will see is there are 2 bolts on the bell housing, one at the top of the starter motor and one at the bottom of the starter motor, but they're both really accessible from this side of the engine and from the top of the engine bay as opposed to underneath. The back side of the starter motor, again relatively simple to get to, and in there we've got our main battery lead connection and the alternator lead on the one stud of the solenoid, and then the signal lead from the ignition. 13mm socket cum spanner combination, does both the fixing around the bell housing and the electrical connections. Weak them off, starter motor drops out, and reverse process to put back in again. And it's quite easy to hold in with one hand and put the bolts in with the other when you're not holding a camera. So the actual changing of the starter motor itself, fairly straightforward. Now let's look at the starter motor out of the old starter motor out of the vehicle. Okay, so the old starter motor comes solenoid out of the Talbot Express, and again, from a physical point of view, in terms of the comments with regard to removal and refitting, the bolts come in to the starter motor housing here and here, through the bell housing, which holds it physically in place. You'll see the gear teeth in here that are thrown forward and engage with a starter ring, and turn the engine over and starts the motor when you turn the ignition. And as I say, in this particular setup, you've got the solenoid attached to the starter motor itself. Solenoid essentially operates as both a switch for the gear to fly forward, and also as a big relay to energize the starter motor. And again, to remove the solenoid, there are 3 studs go through the starter motor housing here, bolt into that. They're just flathead machined screws, and they can be removed, and the solenoid can come apart. Now, the issue we had, of course, was the solenoid and the starter motor on occasion were clicking. Not a good idea. And on the odd occasion you could hit it a good rattle with something solid, it would release and it would start. But what's meant to happen is that when you turn your ignition on, then that should energize the solenoid here, and if we look in there, we'll see a lever. Okay, we'll see a black lever. That lever slides back and forward when the solenoid both engages by pushing the plunger out and disengages by pulling the plunger back again, as and when you start, hold and release your ignition switch. Now, when that lever moves, when pulled with a solenoid, then what it actually does is it thrusts the teeth of the starter motor forward, engages with the starter ring, turns over as the motor turns and starts the engine. Why does it click? Well, there can be numerous reasons. First of all, inside the starter motor, you've got an armature, you've got your bushes, and you've got your electric coil on the motor. I suppose the most common reason on an aged motor is the bushes are worn down and they just get to a point where, depending on where they're sitting in the motor, they'll either engage with the current or not. In this instance, what I think was actually happening was that one of these terminals on the solenoid itself is actually moving slightly, and I have a funny feeling that the connection inside the solenoid was then becoming intermittent, and I think that was what the problem actually was. But whenever it came to replacement, we can replace the solenoid as an independent unit. It's still available, but the difference in price between replacing the solenoid and replacing the entire assembly was only about £25. So it didn't really make much sense to be putting in a new solenoid and sitting with a starter motor, which was, the age it is. So went for the complete assembly replacement. But that was it. So physically very simple to change over. The starter motor itself can click for a number of reasons, but in this instance probably the loose terminal on the solenoid. But again, if you've got the dreaded click, it is simple to change and hopefully stand us all in good stead for years to come. So once again, look, I hope that has been of some interest, and always remember just to subscribe, like and share, and we will see you next time. Bye.